The smell of warm toner and fresh ink filled my lungs as I stood over the copy machine, watching page after page of the quarterly report slide into the tray. 312 pages, double-sided, collated and stapled. My Friday night plans. "Vivian!" I flinched at Dean's voice, my finger slipping and adding an extra copy to the queue. He always said my name like that, like he was calling a disobedient dog that had pissed on his carpet. In my office, now, I smoothed my blouse and followed him, mentally cataloguing the 5 projects I'd completed ahead of schedule this week. Whatever criticism was coming, I had ammunition. His office smelled like expensive cologne and the leather chairs no one but him was allowed to sit in. Dean didn't look up from his computer as I stood there, waiting. The power move was so obvious it was almost comical. Almost. "Melissa's getting married in 8 weeks, he finally said, still not looking at me. "Congratulations," I replied, unsure why his daughter's wedding warranted an emergency Friday evening meeting. He finally raised his eyes, cold blue and narrowed. "You'll be handling all the arrangements." My stomach dropped. "I'm sorry?" "The venue's booked, but everything else needs finalising. Flowers, catering, music. The works." He slid a folder across his desk. "Budget's in there. Melissa will email you her preferences." I didn't move to take it. "Dean, I'm the senior financial analyst. I'm in the middle of the Westbrook merger. And now you're also planning my daughter's wedding." His tone left no room for discussion. Melissa deserves perfection. Make it happen. The folder sat between us like a landmine. I'd spent 7 years at this firm, MBA with honours, 80-hour weeks, sacrificed relationships, sleep, my 30s, all to be treated like a personal assistant. "Is there a problem?" he asked, already turning back to his computer. I picked up the folder. "No problem." Back at my desk, I flipped through what turned out to be a half-inch stack of magazine cutouts, Pinterest printouts, and scribbled notes in loopy handwriting. A text lit up my phone. "Reese, still alive. Drinks at Harlow's." I glanced at the clock. 7:38 p.m. The office was nearly empty. Me. Rain check. Just got handed Melissa's wedding to plan. Reese. "WTF? You're not a wedding planner." Me. "Tell that to Dean." Reese, that's so fucked up. He's just doing this because you challenged him in the meeting yesterday. The memory made my cheeks burn. I'd pointed out a flaw in Dean's strategy for the Westbrook acquisition, politely, with data to back it up. The conference room had gone silent as he stared me down and said, "When I want the opinion of a junior analyst, I'll ask for it." I wasn't junior. I hadn't been junior for 3 years. Me. Probably. Going to finish up here. Talk Monday. I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights hummed, a sound I usually didn't notice until I was the last one here, which was often. My phone buzzed again, but it wasn't Reese. It was an email from Melissa Bond herself. Subject, "My wedding." "Hi, Vivian. Daddy told me you're helping with my special day. I'm so excited to work with you. I've attached my vision board and some links to my favourite Instagram wedding planners. Can we meet Monday at 10 to go over everything? I have tons of ideas. XOXO, Melissa P.S. Nothing tacky, please. This isn't some backyard BBQ. Attached were 17 more documents. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar tightness in my chest. This was my father all over again. "Vivi, be a good girl and take care of your brothers while I'm gone. Gone for hours, days, eventually forever. Always someone else's needs before mine. Always someone else's dreams taking priority." Working late again, I opened my eyes to see Wilfred, the CFO, standing by my desk. His tie was loose, jacket slung over his shoulder. "Always," I said, forcing a smile. He nodded at the wedding folder. "Heard Dean's got you planning the royal wedding." "News travels fast." "It's bullshit," he said quietly. "You're too valuable to waste on that." The unexpected support caught me off guard. Wilfred had always been cordial but distant. "Thanks," I managed. "Just doing what needs to be done." He studied me for a moment. "You know, I've watched you for years. Always the hardest worker. Always the last to complain. Always the first to get passed over. My throat tightened. Is there a point to this pep talk? Just an observation. He turned to leave, then paused. Dean's presenting the Westbrook strategy to the board next Friday. Your strategy, I'm guessing. I said nothing, which was answer enough. Thought so. Wilfred's expression was unreadable. You know, there are other ways to get what you deserve in this world, besides waiting for someone to give it to you. After he left, I sat motionless in my chair, his words echoing in my head. On my screen, Melissa's email glowed like a taunt. In my drawer sat the thumb drive with my complete Westbrook analysis, the one Dean had dismissed, then apparently stolen. For the first time in years, I felt something crack inside me. Not my resolve, something else. The chains of my own making, the ones that kept me hoping that hard work and loyalty would eventually be rewarded. I pulled out the thumb drive and turned it over in my palm. Maybe Wilfred was right. Maybe it was time to stop waiting. Rain lashed against my apartment windows as I sat cross-legged on my bed, laptop balanced on my knees, thunder punctuating my thoughts. 3 a.m, and sleep wasn't even a consideration. I'd spent hours digging through company files I had access to, piecing together what Dean had been doing. It wasn't just the Westbrook merger. It was a pattern stretching back years. My ideas, my analysis, my strategies, all of them, presented by Dean as his own brilliance. The timestamps on the documents told the story. My submissions followed days later by his original presentations to the board. Lightning flashed, illuminating my living room for a split second. Empty wine glass on the coffee table, dead plant I kept forgetting to throw out, framed diploma on the wall that had cost me 6 figures in student loans. Enough, I whispered to myself, the word disappearing into the storm. I created a new folder on my desktop and labeled it Insurance. Then I began copying files, not just my stolen work, but other things. Things Dean wouldn't want anyone to see. Discrepancies in expense reports, emails about massaging numbers for clients, the time he'd buried a sexual harassment complaint against one of his golf buddies in accounting. By dawn, my eyes burned and my back ached. But I had what I needed. The rain had stopped, leaving behind that clean electric smell that follows storms. I stepped onto my tiny balcony, coffee in hand, and watched the city wake up. For the first time in years, I felt something besides resignation. It wasn't quite hope, something sharper. You look like hell, Erin said when I walked into her office Monday morning. Thanks. Just what every woman wants to hear. I closed her door and sank into the chair across from her desk. Erin had been at the firm 5 years longer than me. She'd been the first one to show me the ropes, to warn me about Dean's temper, to tell me which battles to pick. She'd made senior partner last year, the only woman to do so in the firm's history. Seriously, Vivian? Are you okay? Her eyes, sharp behind red-framed glasses, missed nothing. Dean's making me plan Melissa's wedding. Her eyebrows shot up. You're kidding. I wish. 8 weeks to pull together the society event of the season on top of my actual job. That's completely inappropriate. I can talk to him. No, I said too quickly. I mean thank you, but no. I'll handle it. Erin studied me, head tilted. This isn't just about the wedding, is it? I hesitated. Erin was the closest thing I had to a mentor, but she was also part of the leadership team. Her loyalty would ultimately be to the firm. He took my Westbrook strategy, I said finally. The one I presented in the meeting last week. He's presenting it to the board on Friday as his own. Erin's face darkened. Are you sure? Positive. And it's not the first time. She sighed, removing her glasses to rub the bridge of her nose. Dean's an ass, but he's a connected ass. His father-in-law still sits on the board. He plays golf with half our clients. So that makes it okay? Of course not. She leaned forward. But you need to be strategic, Vivian. This firm operates on relationships and perception. If you go after Dean directly, you'll lose. So I just keep letting him steal my work while I plan his daughter's fairy tale wedding? No, Erin's voice was firm. You document everything. You build allies. You position yourself so that when the right opportunity comes, you can take it. She paused. And in the meantime, you do such an amazing job with that wedding that even Dean can't ignore your value. I wanted to argue, but the pragmatist in me knew she was right. Partially right, anyway. Thanks, I said, standing to leave. I should get to it then. Vivian, Erin called as I reached the door. Be careful. I've seen promising careers derailed by the wrong kind of ambition. I nodded and left, her warning following me down the hallway. Daddy says you're the best analyst in the firm, Melissa said, stirring her oat milk latte with a perfectly manicured finger. That's why he chose you for this. We sat in the overpriced cafe across from the office, surrounded by her wedding magazines and my growing headache. Did he? I kept my voice neutral, though my pulse quickened. Dean had never said anything remotely like that to my face. Mm-hmm. She flipped through a bridal magazine. He says you're detail-oriented and ruthlessly efficient. Ruthlessly efficient, like a machine. Not creative, not insightful, just a tool. The flowers need to be peonies and garden roses. White and blush only, Melissa continued, oblivious to my thoughts. And the cake should be 6 tiers minimum. Oh, and we need to find a new photographer. The one Daddy hired is doing my cousin Becca's wedding now. I made notes mechanically, part of my brain still stuck on Dean's backhanded compliment. Also, Melissa lowered her voice, leaning in, don't tell Daddy, but I've invited Ryan. Ryan? My ex, from college. Her eyes gleamed with mischief. We've been talking again, just as friends, of course, but Daddy always hated him. I looked up from my notes. Does your fiancé know you've invited your ex? She waved her hand dismissively. Jason doesn't care. He's so busy with work, he barely notices anything. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at it, a small smile playing on her lips. Speaking of... As she texted back, I noticed the name on her screen. It wasn't Jason. It was Wilfred. My stomach dropped as pieces clicked into place. Wilfred's unusual interest in my situation, his late-night presence at the office, his cryptic advice. Melissa, I said carefully, how do you know Wilfred? Her head snapped up, eyes wide with panic. What? He works with Daddy, so... You just texted him. Her face flushed. You were looking at my phone? That's so invasive. But the damage was done. I'd seen enough to know. Melissa, Dean's precious daughter, was having an affair with the company's CFO. And now I knew it. Melissa's pre-wedding brunch was exactly as pretentious as I'd expected. The restaurant's private room overflowed with white roses and mimosas, 20-something women in pastel dresses squealing over the diamond that weighed down Melissa's left hand. I stood in the corner, clipboard in hand, checking items off my list while pretending I was anywhere else. You look like you're plotting a murder, Reese whispered, appearing at my side with 2 champagne flutes. She handed me one. Drink this. Doctor's orders. I took a small sip. I'm working. You're hiding. She nudged me. Come on, these basic bitches won't bite. Much. I glanced at Melissa holding court at the center table. I'm not here as a guest. I'm the help, remember? Screw that. Dean's not here to see. Reese clinked her glass against mine. Besides, I need moral support. Melissa only invited me because we were in the same sorority, and I'm pretty sure she still thinks my name is Rhonda. Despite everything, I smiled. Reese had been my first real friend at the firm, the only other woman in our department when I started. She'd shown me where to get decent coffee, which bathrooms to avoid, and how to navigate the boys' club mentality. Fine, 1 drink. I took another sip and lowered my voice. Did you know about Melissa and Wilfred? Reese nearly choked. What? No. Are you serious? I nodded. Caught them texting yesterday, definitely not professional. Holy shit. Her eyes widened. That's... Wow. Does Dean know? Doubtful. And I'm not sure what to do with this information. Reese studied me for a moment. What do you want to do with it? The question hung between us as waiters circulated with tiny avocado toasts and cucumber sandwiches. What did I want? Revenge? Leverage? To burn it all down? I don't know yet, I admitted. Before Reese could respond, Melissa's voice cut through the chatter. Vivienne, come here. We're talking about the bachelorette party. I plastered on a smile and approached the table, where Melissa sat surrounded by her bridesmaids. We want to do Vegas, she announced. Daddy says you'll arrange everything. Of course he did. When were you thinking? I asked, pulling out my phone to check the calendar. 2 weekends from now. I looked up. That's very soon. Well, duh. The wedding's in 8 weeks. Melissa rolled her eyes. We need VIP tables at Omnia and Hakkasan, and a suite at the Cosmopolitan, the bungalow ones with the balconies. The other women nodded enthusiastically. I'll see what I can do, I said, making notes. Don't see, do. Melissa's smile didn't reach her eyes. Oh, and you're coming too. Daddy insists. My pen froze mid-word. I'm sorry. Someone needs to keep everything running smoothly. Make sure we get into the right clubs, that the champagne is chilled, that no one ends up in jail. She laughed, and her friends joined in. Consider it part of your job description. I felt Reese's eyes on me from across the room. I wanted to refuse to tell Melissa exactly where she could stick her bachelorette party, but I thought of my plan, of the information I was gathering, of the long game I was playing. I'd be happy to, I lied. Back at the office that afternoon, I shut my door and pulled up the company's financial records. If Melissa and Wilfred were involved, there might be more to the story than just an affair. Expense reports, travel records, anything that might show a pattern. A knock interrupted my search. Come in, I called, quickly minimizing the window. Wilfred entered, closing the door behind him. My heart rate doubled. How was the brunch? He asked casually. Thrilling. Nothing like watching privileged women compare engagement rings while drinking $15 orange juice. He laughed, settling into the chair across from my desk. I wanted to follow up on our conversation the other night. Which part? I kept my voice neutral. The part where you pointed out I'm being taken advantage of, or the part where you suggested I do something about it? Both. He leaned forward. I've been watching Dean operate for years, taking credit for other people's work, promoting his golf buddies, using company resources for personal gain. Like making me plan his daughter's wedding? Exactly. Wilfred's eyes locked with mine. What if I told you there's a way to change things around here? To make sure people like Dean don't keep getting away with it? My pulse quickened. I'd say I'm listening. The board meeting on Friday. Dean's presenting your Westbrook strategy. I'm aware. What if he crashed and burned? What if the board saw through him? I studied Wilfred's face. Why do you care? Maybe I'm tired of working for someone who doesn't deserve his position. He paused. Or maybe I have my own reasons. Like sleeping with the boss's daughter, I wanted to ask but held my tongue. What exactly are you suggesting? I asked instead. I've seen your original analysis, it's brilliant, but there's a flaw in the tax structure that Dean missed when he copied your work. If someone pointed that out during the presentation, understanding dawned. You want me to sabotage him? I want you to tell the truth, Wilfred stood. Think about it. This could be your chance. After he left, I sat motionless, mind racing. Was this an opportunity or a trap? Was Wilfred using me to undermine Dean for his own purposes? Or was this genuinely a chance to expose the truth? I pulled out my phone and texted Reese. Need to talk. Drinks tonight. Her response came immediately. Can't. Working late with the Westbrook team. Tomorrow. I frowned. Reese wasn't on the Westbrook team. I would know. I'd built the financial models. Unless Dean had added her after taking my work, or unless she was lying. I opened my drawer and looked at the thumb drive containing my insurance files. The path forward suddenly seemed less clear, the allies I thought I had more questionable. If I made a move against Dean, I'd be exposing myself too, and I still didn't know who I could trust. For the first time, doubt crept in. What if I wasn't as clever as I thought? What if I was just a pawn in someone else's game? I spent Thursday night in my apartment surrounded by spreadsheets and wedding vendor contracts, switching between them like I was living 2 separate lives. The Westbrook financials on one screen, florists and DJs on the other. I'd barely slept all week, running on coffee and spite. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Unknown, it's Wilfred. Are you ready for tomorrow? I stared at the message. I still hadn't decided if I was going to take his suggestion to publicly call out the flaws in my presentation. Me. How did you get my number? Wilfred. Company directory. You didn't answer my question. Me. Still thinking. Wilfred. Don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't come often. I set my phone down and rubbed my eyes. The board meeting was at 10 a.m. In 14 hours, I'd either be taking the biggest risk of my career or continuing to let Dean walk all over me. My doorbell rang, startling me. It was nearly midnight. Through the peephole, I saw Reese holding a bottle of wine and a paper bag that smelled like Chinese food. Surprise, she said when I opened the door. I figured you'd still be up obsessing over tomorrow. I let her in, suddenly aware of the mess. Papers everywhere, coffee mugs piling up, me in the same clothes I'd worn to work. You look like shit, she said, setting the food on my counter. Thanks. It's a new aesthetic I'm trying. She laughed, pulling containers from the bag. Kung Pao chicken and vegetable lo mein. And wine that's definitely better than whatever you've been drinking. I grabbed plates while she uncorked the bottle. I thought you were working late with the Westbrook team. A flicker of something discomfort crossed her face. I was. Finished early. Funny. I didn't know you were on that project. She poured 2 generous glasses of wine. Dean added me last week, said they needed another set of eyes on the financial projections. My projections, the ones I'd spent months building. That's great, I lied, accepting the glass she handed me. We settled on my couch, food balanced on our laps. For a few minutes we ate in comfortable silence like we'd done countless times before, but something felt off. So, Reese said finally, what's your plan for tomorrow? I took a sip of wine, buying time. What do you mean? Come on, Vivian. I know you. You're not just going to sit there while Dean presents your work. Maybe I am. Maybe that's the smart play. She studied me. Or maybe you're planning something. Would you blame me if I was? No. She set her plate down. But I'd want to know what it is so I could help. I hesitated. Reese had been my friend for years. We'd vented about Dean over countless happy hours, shared our frustrations and ambitions, but something held me back. I'm still figuring it out, I said. She nodded slowly. Well, whatever you decide, I've got your back. You know that, right? I know. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it anymore. Friday morning arrived with a knot in my stomach and a decision still unmade. I dressed carefully. Charcoal pencil skirt, crisp white blouse, the red blazer I saved for days when I needed armor. The office buzzed with unusual energy. Board meetings always created tension, but today felt different. Or maybe it was just me, hyper-aware of every glance, every whispered conversation. I ran into Melissa at the coffee station, her engagement ring catching the light as she stirred creamer into her cup. Oh, good, you're here, she said, as if I might have decided to skip work. I need to talk to you about the bachelorette party. The girls want to add a spa day before the clubs. Fine, I'll adjust the itinerary. I reached past her for the coffee pot. And Jason can't make our cake tasting next week, so you'll need to come instead. I paused. Isn't that something you should do with your fiancé? She waved her hand dismissively. He doesn't care about cake. Besides, he's always working. Must be difficult planning a wedding with someone so busy. Something flickered in her eyes. We make it work. And how does Wilfred feel about that? The colour drained from her face. What? Your relationship with Wilfred. Does Jason know about that too? Her coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. I kept my voice low, calm. And I think your father would be very interested to hear about it. Are you threatening me? Her voice trembled slightly. Not at all. Just making conversation. I smiled. Good luck with the cake tasting. I walked away, heart pounding. I hadn't planned to confront her like that, but something had snapped inside me, the cumulative weight of disrespect, of being used, of watching people like Melissa and Dean take whatever they wanted without consequences. As I rounded the corner, I nearly collided with Dean himself. Vivian, just who I was looking for. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I need the latest Westbrook projections for the board meeting. Of course. I kept my face neutral. I'll email them right away. Make sure they match what we discussed. No surprises. What we discussed. As if the strategy had been a collaboration rather than my work that he'd stolen. No surprises, I agreed. Back at my desk, I opened the Westbrook files. The board meeting was in 30 minutes. I had a choice to make. I thought of Wilfred's suggestion to expose the tax structure flaw, of Reese's sudden addition to the project team, of Melissa's panic when I mentioned her affair. Everyone had angles, secrets, motivations, including me. I made my decision. Opening my email, I attached the projections, not the flawed ones Dean had copied, but my original correct analysis. Then, I BCC'd every board member. Subject: Westbrook Acquisition Analysis. Original version, the die was cast. There was no turning back now. The boardroom felt like a pressure cooker. All polished mahogany and tense silence. I sat 3 seats down from Dean, close enough to see sweat beading at his temples as he shuffled through his presentation notes. He hadn't mentioned my email. Neither had anyone else, but the air felt charged like the moment before lightning strikes. Let's begin with the Westbrook acquisition, said Gerald, the board chairman. His silver hair and perpetually furrowed brow gave him the look of a disappointed grandfather. Dean, I believe you're leading this? Dean stood, straightening his tie. Yes, thank you, Gerald. As he launched into his presentation, I watched the board members' faces. Most wore their usual masks of polite attention, but a few, the ones who actually read their emails, kept glancing between their tablets and me. The tax structure we've developed offers significant advantages, Dean continued, clicking to a slide that displayed my work, my exact work, down to the font choices. By leveraging the offshore holdings. Excuse me, interrupted Diane, one of the newer board members. I'm confused about something. Dean's smile tightened. Yes? The analysis you're presenting differs from what I received by email this morning. She looked directly at me. Perhaps Ms. Lucas could clarify. Every head turned in my direction. Dean's face darkened, his eyes boring into me with unmistakable warning. This was it. The moment I'd created. The confrontation I'd been building toward. I cleared my throat. There appears to be some confusion. The email contained my original analysis, which I completed 3 weeks ago. Your analysis? Gerald's eyebrows rose. Yes, I led the financial strategy for this acquisition. Dean's laugh cut through the tension. Vivian is a valuable member of our team who contributed some preliminary numbers, but the comprehensive strategy we're discussing today was developed under my direction. That's not true. The words escaped before I could stop them, my voice steadier than I felt. The strategy is mine. Every model, every projection, every slide in that deck. I can walk through any detail if you'd like. Silence fell over the room. I could feel my career imploding in real time, could see the bridges burning around me, but there was also a strange sense of relief. The truth was finally out. This is inappropriate, Dean snapped. We can discuss team contributions later. Right now. Actually, Diane cut in. I'd like to hear Ms. Lucas explain the discrepancy in the tax structure. The email version seems more advantageous. Dean's face flushed crimson. This is ridiculous. I won't have my presentation hijacked by the person who actually did the work? The words came from Wilfred, who had been silent until now. He leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. I think we should hear what Vivian has to say. For the next 20 minutes, I walked through my analysis, answering questions, explaining my reasoning. With each point, Dean's expression grew darker, his posture more rigid. I could feel his rage from across the table, but I kept going. When I finished, Gerald cleared his throat. Thank you, Vivian. This has been illuminating. He turned to Dean. I think we need to continue this discussion privately. The rest of you are dismissed. As we filed out, no one spoke. The weight of what I'd done pressed down on me with each step. I'd publicly challenged Dean. There was no walking it back. In the hallway, Reese grabbed my arm, pulling me into an empty conference room. "What the hell was that?" she hissed, eyes wide. "Are you trying to get fired?" "I'm trying to get credit for my work. By humiliating Dean in front of the board? Jesus, Vivian." Her reaction caught me off guard. "I thought you'd understand. You've dealt with the same crap from him." "Understanding and approving are different things." She ran a hand through her hair. "This isn't just about you. Did you think about how this affects the rest of us? The projects we're on? The deals in progress? So I should just keep letting him steal my work? Keep planning his daughter's wedding while he takes credit for everything I do? You should have been strategic. Played the long game." A horrible thought struck me. Did you know that he was presenting my work? She wouldn't meet my eyes. "You did." My voice dropped to a whisper. "You knew and you didn't tell me. It's complicated. It's really not. Look," she said, "Dean came to me last week, said he needed help refining the Westbrook numbers. I knew they were yours, but what was I supposed to do? He's the boss. You could have warned me. And then what? Watch you do exactly what you just did." She shook her head. "I was trying to protect you." "No, you were protecting yourself." The realization hurt more than I expected. Did he promise you something? A promotion? A raise? Her silence was answer enough. "Get out," I said quietly. "Vivian, get out." After she left, I sank into a chair, the adrenaline crash leaving me shaky. My phone buzzed with a text. "Wilfred, meet me in the parking garage, level 3. Now." I stared at the message, torn between suspicion and curiosity. Wilfred had backed me in the meeting, but I still didn't fully trust his motives. Was this a trap? Or was he the only real ally I had left? Either way, I needed answers. As I rode the elevator down, my phone buzzed again. An email from HR. Subject: immediate meeting required. The message was brief. Please report to Human Resources immediately regarding a serious matter. My stomach dropped. It was starting already. The retaliation. I ignored the email and pressed the button for the parking garage. Whatever Wilfred wanted, it suddenly seemed more urgent than facing HR's firing squad. The elevator doors opened to the dimly lit garage, and I stepped out, my heels echoing against concrete. Whatever happened next, there would be no going back. The parking garage smelled of exhaust and concrete dust. My footsteps echoed as I walked deeper into level 3, scanning for Wilfred between the rows of cars. My phone kept buzzing with HR messages, each one more urgent than the last. I found him leaning against his black Mercedes, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "That was quite a performance upstairs," he said as I approached. "Was it a performance? I thought I was just telling the truth." He smiled slightly. "The truth is always a performance in this business. The question is whether the audience believes it." Did they? The board? Yes. Dean's credibility is shot. He pushed off from the car. "But that's not why I asked you here." "Then why did you?" "Because you need to understand what you've started." His voice lowered. "Dean's not going to just accept defeat. He's already in HR filing a complaint against you for insubordination, corporate espionage, probably a dozen other trumped-up charges." My stomach tightened. Is that why they're blowing up my phone? Probably. And it's just the beginning. He glanced around the garage, then back at me. "Dean has connections throughout the industry. If he goes down, he'll make sure you never work in finance again." "So, what am I supposed to do? Run away? Apologize?" "Neither." Wilfred reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains evidence of Dean's financial misconduct over the past 5 years. Falsified expense reports, client billing fraud, even some creative accounting on the Westbrook deal itself." I stared at the small device. "Why do you have this?" "Let's just say I've been keeping receipts. I knew someday they might be useful." "And you're giving them to me? Why?" His eyes met mine. "Because you had the courage to do what I've wanted to do for years, and because I think you can finish this." I took the flash drive, its weight insignificant compared to what it represented. What about you and Melissa? His expression hardened. What about us? Does Dean know? No, and it needs to stay that way. So this is the price for your help? My silence? It's not what you think. He ran a hand over his face. Melissa and I, it's complicated. Affairs usually are. It's not just an affair. Something in his voice made me pause. We've been together for almost a year. She's leaving Jason after the wedding. I couldn't help but laugh. She's going through with a wedding to a man she's planning to leave. Dean's invested millions in this merger with Jason's family. The wedding is part of it. If Melissa backs out now, Dean loses everything. The pieces clicked into place. So you're using me to take down Dean before the wedding. I'm giving you the tools to get justice. What you do with them is your choice. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Erin's name flashed on the screen. I have to take this, I said, stepping away. Vivian, where are you? Erin's voice was tight with concern. HR is looking everywhere for you. I needed some air. Well, get back up here now. Dean's on the warpath, and if you don't defend yourself, this gets much worse. What's he saying? That you stole confidential information, that you're trying to sabotage the Westbrook deal, that you've been conspiring with competitors. She paused. It's bad, Vivian. Really bad. I glanced at Wilfred, who was watching me intently. I'll be right up. After hanging up, I turned back to him. I need to go. Think carefully about your next move, he said. Once you use what's on that drive, there's no turning back. HR had gathered quite the welcoming committee. Dean sat at the head of the conference table, flanked by two people from legal. Erin sat opposite them, her expression grim. A woman I recognized as the head of HR gestured for me to sit. Ms. Lucas, thank you for finally joining us, she said, her tone making it clear my absence had not gone unnoticed. We're addressing some serious allegations about your conduct. I'm aware. I set my bag down but remained standing. I'm also aware that I've done nothing wrong. Dean scoffed. Nothing wrong? You undermined a presentation to our board. You distributed confidential company information without authorization. You've been planning this sabotage for weeks. Is that what we're calling it when someone refuses to let their work be stolen? I kept my voice steady. Everything I presented to the board was my own analysis. Analysis that you took credit for. That's absurd. You work for me. Your work product belongs to the company, and I determine how it's presented. Dean, Erin cut in. There's a difference between work belonging to the company and you claiming someone else's ideas as your own. He turned on her. Stay out of this, Erin. This isn't about you. Actually, it is. She straightened. It's about all of us. About the culture we've allowed to fester here. The HR director cleared her throat. Let's focus on the immediate issue. Ms. Lucas, do you deny sending confidential company information to the board without authorization? I sent my own analysis to correct the record. That's not unauthorized distribution. It's whistleblowing. One of the lawyers leaned forward. Whistleblowing requires reporting illegal activity. Taking credit for work is unethical, perhaps, but not illegal. I thought of the flash drive in my bag, of all the actual illegal activity I could expose. What if there was more? I asked quietly. Dean's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? What if I told you I have evidence of financial misconduct, falsified reports, billing fraud? The room went silent. The lawyer exchanged glances with HR. Erin's eyes widened slightly. That's preposterous, Dean finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. She's making desperate accusations to save herself. Am I? I reached for my bag. Should we find out? That's enough, the HR director stood. This meeting is adjourned until Monday. Both parties are to have no contact until then. Ms. Lucas, consider yourself on administrative leave, pending investigation. As everyone filed out, Erin caught my arm. What are you doing? She whispered. Do you actually have evidence? Or are you bluffing? I thought of Wilfred's flash drive, of Melissa's wedding just days away, of all the lines I'd already crossed. I guess we'll find out on Monday, I said. Dean brushed past us, pausing just long enough to mutter, "You've just destroyed your career. I hope it was worth it." After he left, Erin studied my face. "Be careful, Vivian. Whatever you think you know, whatever you're planning, there are always consequences. Sometimes they're not the ones you expect." Her warning followed me as I left the building, the flash drive heavy in my bag. I had the weekend to decide, use Wilfred's evidence and burn it all down, or find another way forward. The wedding was in 6 days. The clock was ticking. Melissa's wedding reception glittered with wealth and pretension. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ballroom ceiling, reflecting light onto white orchid centerpieces and champagne flutes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I stood near the back, watching the celebration unfold like I was observing a play I'd helped stage but wasn't actually part of. The ceremony had been flawless. The bride radiant, the groom handsome, Dean beaming with pride as he walked his daughter down the aisle. No one looking at them would have guessed the tangled web of lies beneath the surface. Or that I was about to tear it all apart. "You actually came." Wilfred appeared beside me, champagne in hand. In his tuxedo, he looked like every other wealthy man in the room. "I wasn't sure you would. I planned half of this. Seemed a shame to miss it." I accepted the glass he offered. "Besides, I made a promise." "To who?" "Myself." He studied me. "You look different. Resolved." I was. After days of agonizing, of examining the evidence on his flash drive, of weighing consequences and scenarios, I'd made my decision. There would be no going back. "Have you seen Reese?" I asked, scanning the crowd. "At the bar, last I checked." He lowered his voice. "Did you bring it?" I nodded slightly. The flash drive was in my clutch along with a few other items I'd need. "What's your plan?" "You'll see." I drained my champagne. "Excuse me." I made my way through the crowd, nodding at colleagues, smiling at strangers. The weekend had given everyone time to hear about my confrontation with Dean. Some avoided eye contact, others watched me with barely concealed curiosity. I was the entertainment no one had expected. I found Reese leaning against the bar, looking uncomfortable in her bridesmaid dress. "Hey," I said, sliding next to her. She tensed. "Hey, didn't expect to see you here." Apparently neither did anyone else. I signaled the bartender. "Vodka soda, please." "Vivian, about last week." "Don't." I turned to face her. I didn't come to rehash that. "Then why did you come?" The bartender set my drink down. I took a sip, letting the alcohol burn slightly. "To finish what I started." Her eyes widened. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done being invisible. Done letting people like Dean and Melissa use me and discard me." I set my glass down. "And I thought you, of all people, would understand that." "I do, but you chose the safe path." "I get it." I softened my tone. "I'm not here to judge you, Reese. I just wanted you to know that whatever happens next, it wasn't personal." Before she could respond, the DJ announced it was time for the father-daughter dance. The crowd parted as Dean led Melissa to the center of the dance floor. They swayed to some sentimental ballad, Dean whispering something that made Melissa laugh. I felt a hand on my arm. "Erin, we need to talk," she said quietly, pulling me toward a quiet corner. "Whatever you're planning, don't do it." "What makes you think I'm planning anything?" "Because I know that look." Her eyes were serious. "The board is already investigating Dean based on what happened in the meeting. HR is reviewing your complaints. The system is working, Vivian." "The system?" I laughed softly. "The system is what protected him for years. The system is what kept me planning his daughter's wedding instead of being recognized for my work. And now that's changing. Don't derail it with something rash." I looked at her. Really looked at her. Erin had always been my mentor, the woman I aspired to be. But standing there, I realized we were fundamentally different. She believed in incremental change, in working within the system. I was done with that. "It's too late," I said simply. The dance ended to applause. The DJ invited everyone to take their seats for dinner and toasts. I moved toward the head table where Dean sat between Melissa and her new husband, all smiles and champagne toasts. My heart pounded as I approached the DJ's table. "Excuse me," I said. "I have a special message from the bride. She wants me to make an announcement before the best man's toast." He looked uncertain. "That's not on the schedule." I slipped him a folded $100 bill. "Last-minute change." He shrugged, handed me the microphone, and dimmed the music. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special announcement." The room quieted as I walked to the center of the dance floor. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. I caught Melissa's confused expression, Dean's narrowing gaze, Wilfred's tense posture. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady despite my racing pulse. "For those who don't know me, I'm Vivian. I had the privilege of planning this beautiful wedding." Polite applause rippled through the room. "I've spent the past 6 weeks ensuring every detail was perfect. The flowers, the music, the menu." I smiled. "I've also spent that time uncovering some interesting information I thought the bride and groom might want to know before they begin their life together." The room went silent. Dean half rose from his chair, but Melissa put a hand on his arm, her face frozen in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "For instance," I continued, "did you know that the father of the bride has been systematically defrauding the company he works for? Or that the bride has been having an affair with the company's CFO for the past year?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jason, the groom, turned to stare at Melissa, whose face had gone pale. "Vivian!" Dean's voice boomed across the room as he stood. "That's enough!" "No, Dean, it's not enough." My voice grew stronger. "It's not enough that you stole my work for years. It's not enough that you used me to plan this sham of a wedding. It's not enough that you tried to destroy my career when I finally stood up for myself." I pulled the flash drive from my clutch and held it up. "Everything I'm saying is documented here. Financial records, text messages, hotel receipts, all of it." The room erupted in murmurs. Dean stormed toward me, face contorted with rage, but 2 of Jason's relatives intercepted him. "You're finished," he spat. "Do you hear me? You'll never work again." "Maybe," I acknowledged, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "But so are you." I turned to address the stunned crowd. "I apologize for disrupting the celebration. The truth isn't always convenient, but I believe it's always necessary." As I handed the microphone back to the DJ, chaos erupted. Jason was shouting at Melissa, who was crying. Dean was being restrained by several men. Guests were standing, pointing, recording on their phones. I walked through the pandemonium toward the exit, my head high, feeling strangely light. I'd burned every bridge, destroyed my career, and probably ensured I'd never work in finance again. But for the first time in years, I was free. Morning light streamed through the windows of my apartment, painting golden rectangles on the hardwood floor. I sat cross-legged on the couch, coffee cooling beside me, scrolling through the aftermath of my nuclear strike. The business news sites were having a field day. Wedding whistleblower exposes financial fraud. Bond financial services under investigation. Merger collapses amid scandal. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello? Is this Vivian Lucas?" A woman's voice, brisk and professional. "Yes. This is Margot Winters from the Securities and Exchange Commission. We'd like to speak with you about the information you've made public regarding Bond Financial." I'd expected this call, just not so soon. "I'm available whenever you need me." "Excellent. And Ms. Lucas?" "You did the right thing." After arranging a meeting for later that day, I set my phone down and walked to the window. The city sprawled before me, unchanged by the chaos I'd unleashed. People still hurried along sidewalks, traffic still crawled, life continued. But something fundamental had shifted, not in the world but in me. My doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw Melissa, looking nothing like the radiant bride of yesterday. Her eyes were puffy, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her designer clothes replaced by jeans and a plain sweater. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "This is unexpected." "Can I come in?" Her voice was hoarse, probably from crying. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She entered cautiously, as if entering a stranger's home. In a way, she was. She'd never been to my apartment before, never shown any interest in my life outside what I could do for her. "The wedding's all over the internet," she said, standing awkwardly in my living room. "Everyone's talking about it." "That tends to happen when the bride's affair is exposed during the reception," she flinched. "I deserved that. What do you want, Melissa?" She sat on the edge of my couch, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I wanted to tell you that you were right. About everything." She looked up at me. "The wedding was a business arrangement. My father pressured me into it. Jason's family owns the patents Dean needed for the merger." "And Wilfred?" "I love him." Her voice cracked. "Or I thought I did. Now I don't know. He hasn't returned my calls since last night. I wasn't surprised. Wilfred had gotten what he wanted, Dean's downfall. Melissa had served her purpose. Why are you telling me this? Because I owe you the truth." She wiped a tear. "And because I need your help." I laughed, couldn't help it. My help? After everything? "The SEC is investigating my father. They've frozen our accounts, seized our computers. They're saying I might be implicated because I knew about some of his dealings." Her eyes pleaded. "I need someone who understands what happened, who has the evidence." "So you can make it disappear? Protect your father?" "No." She stood suddenly. "So I can protect myself. I didn't know the extent of what he was doing. I swear. But no one's going to believe that without proof." I studied her face, searching for the manipulation, the angle. But all I saw was fear. Real fear. "What about your father? You'd testify against him." "He used me." Her voice hardened. "My whole life he's used me. The perfect daughter, the corporate asset, the bride to seal the deal. I'm done being his pawn." In that moment, I recognized something in Melissa I hadn't seen before, something familiar. She'd been trapped too, just in a gilded cage. "I'll think about it," I said finally. "That's all I can promise." After she left, I returned to the window, watching as she walked to her car. My phone buzzed with a text from Erin. "Erin, board emergency meeting today. Dean's suspended. They want to talk to you. Call me." Before I could respond, another text came through. "Reese, I was wrong. You were right. I'm sorry. Coffee soon." And then another, from a number I didn't recognize. "Unknown. This is Gerald from the board. We need to discuss your future at the company and a potential leadership position." I set the phone down, overwhelmed by the sudden shift. For years, I'd been invisible, my work stolen, my potential ignored. Now, everyone wanted a piece of me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd blown up my career to expose the truth, and instead of destroying my future, it had created new possibilities. But did I want them? Did I want to return to a company that had valued me only after I'd forced them to? My gaze fell on the business card I'd received last month from a startup looking for a financial strategist. I'd kept it, a small act of rebellion, a reminder that other options existed. I picked it up, turning it over in my fingers. There would be decisions to make, testimony to give, relationships to rebuild or release. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but for the first time it was mine to choose. My phone rang again. This time I let it go to voicemail. The world could wait. I had spent years responding to other people's demands, fitting myself into spaces they designed. Not anymore. I opened my laptop and began to type, not a resignation letter or a statement for the SEC, but something more personal. The story of how I found my voice, how I stopped being invisible, how I learned that sometimes you have to burn everything down to see what remains in the ashes. The sun climbed higher, filling my apartment with light. Outside, the city continued its rhythm. Inside, in the quiet of my own space, I finally understood what I'd been fighting for all along. Not revenge, not justice, just the simple, powerful right to author my own story. And no one would ever take that from me again.
Hi, I'm Irene. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing double shifts, just to help my sister stay afloat. But then she showed up at my job, called me a lowlife in front of a packed restaurant, and walked out like I was nothing. I thought that would be the worst part. But what came after? The lies, the guilt, the way my own parents turned their backs? What do you do when the people you love treat you like a utility instead of a daughter? Some people carry family in their wallets, pictures, phone numbers, emergency contacts. I carry mine in my spine, in the slouch of my shoulders, in the exhaustion that never really lifts. It was around 6:30 in the evening, and I was wiping down the counter at the restaurant before the dinner rush picked up. The overhead lights buzzed softly, and a faint scent of marinara clung to the air. I'd been working double shifts all week, covering for a coworker who quit without notice. My manager barely looked at me anymore, just tossed a dish rag my way and mumbled, "You're a lifesaver." I'm not. I'm just a woman in her 30s who learned too early that when people around you start drowning, they'll grab whatever's closest to stay afloat. And that was always me. Growing up in Sacramento, my parents raised us in a house that looked calm from the outside. White shutters, trimmed lawn. But inside, it was all about who shined the brightest. My sister Calla always had a spotlight. Mom said she had star quality, whatever that meant. Dad called her our little diamond. I was just the steady one, the helper, the problem solver. At first, I wore it like a badge. Who wouldn't want to be dependable? But over time, I noticed something. Calla never had to lift a finger unless it was to point at someone else to do it for her. Usually, that someone was me. A few weeks ago, Mom called during my short break between shifts. I was sitting in my car, engine off, sandwich untouched. "Honey," she started, soft like she always did when she wanted something, "your sister's had a rough patch lately. I was wondering, could you help cover her rent just until she gets back on her feet?" I didn't answer right away. I stared at the crack in my windshield, the one I couldn't afford to fix. "She's your sister," Mom added, as if that settled everything. "Family helps each other." Dad was silent on the line, but I knew he was there, probably nodding. Always the quiet partner in this twisted little arrangement. They didn't have to say more. They never said more. The burden just rolled downhill, and I caught it, again. I said yes. I always say yes. The next day, I checked my credit card statement out of habit, something in me uneasy. That's when I saw it. 2 separate charges totaling nearly $900. One at a boutique downtown, the other for some online cosmetic brand I'd never heard of. My chest tightened. I knew. Somehow, I just knew. When I called Calla, she answered like nothing was wrong. "Oh, that? Don't be dramatic," she laughed. "I needed a few things. You're the one with the job, right?" I said nothing. "You always said you'd be there for me. And it was just this once, I swear. Don't turn it into a whole thing." Just this once. Funny how just this once always finds its way into the mouths of people who make a habit of taking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the same patch of water damage from last winter blinking back at me. I thought about the culinary program I'd looked into at the community college. I'd bookmarked it months ago, even saved up for the first semester. That money was gone now. And still, I didn't call her back. I didn't demand the money. I didn't even tell our parents what she'd done. I just kept going. The next morning, I poured black coffee into a chipped mug, buttoned up my server uniform, and walked out the door like nothing was broken. Like I wasn't. Because in this family, silence is survival, and survival is expected. I stared at the phone, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the slow, growing realization. They were never going to stop asking. That realization didn't fade the next day. It stuck with me like smoke in my clothes. Every message from my mother felt heavier. Every ring of my phone made my stomach turn. I stopped checking my balance because I already knew what it would say. The restaurant was packed that Saturday night. Live music, wine flowing, plates clinking. A good night for tips if your heart wasn't 3 counties away. I kept my head down, moving from table to table, balancing trays and small talk. One table asked for extra breadsticks 4 times. Another tried to flirt. All I could think about was the math in my head. Rent, gas, Cala's bills, groceries, the late-night pharmacy trip I hadn't budgeted for. By 7:45, the dining room buzzed like a beehive. I'd just finished clearing a table near the back when I heard it. Her voice. That's my sister, believe it or not. I didn't have to turn around. I already knew it was Cala. She was seated with 2 people I didn't recognize. She wore a tight black dress, full makeup, and her hair in that styled wave she usually only pulled out for weddings or pity plays. The people with her laughed like she was a celebrity. I stayed behind the partition, praying someone else would take their table. No such luck. Table 15's asking for you, Jessa said, glancing at the screen, then at me. They said you're family. My heart knocked against my ribs. I walked toward the table like I was walking the plank. Cala beamed. There she is. Isn't she cute in her little apron? You guys, this is my sister Irene. She owns this place. She burst into laughter before correcting herself. Kidding. She just works here. I froze mid-step. Her voice was loud enough to catch the attention of the table behind her. My manager, Marco, glanced over. I gave a tight smile and focused on the notepad in my hand. May I take your order? I asked. Cala leaned forward, elbow on the table. You still working nights? I figured you'd have leveled up by now. One of her companions let out a surprised laugh, like they weren't sure if they were allowed to react. I mean, come on, she added, twirling her wine glass. You're really okay being everyone's servant? I couldn't do it. Some of us actually have ambitions, you know? The words didn't hit me like a punch. They cut deeper. The kind of pain that doesn't bleed, just stays under your skin, cold and permanent. I looked at her. Really looked. And then she leaned closer, pretending to fix a stray strand of her hair. Quietly, for me only. You're just a low-life waitress, Irene. That's what you'll always be. I said nothing. I didn't flinch. I walked away without taking their order. Marco was already heading my direction. You okay? He asked. I'll take my break now, I said before he could say more. In the kitchen, I sank onto a crate near the storage shelves. My apron felt like it weighed 50 pounds. I wiped my hands on my jeans, which only made them feel dirtier. My throat tightened, but I wouldn't cry. Not here. Jessa came in a minute later, holding a cup of water. Are you all right? I nodded, lying with the reflex of someone who's done it too many times. Just got dizzy for a second. She didn't press. The rest of my shift blurred. I avoided table 15. Another server picked it up. Cala didn't try to stop me when she left. No wave, no thanks. Just the sound of her heels clicking across the tile floor like nothing had happened. I left work after midnight. The air was crisp, finally cool after a hot day. I walked home. Didn't wait for the bus, didn't call a ride. I needed the silence more than I needed to sit. Her voice looped in my head. You're just a low-life waitress. It was one thing to be taken for granted behind closed doors. But this was different. I didn't cry when I got home. I didn't pour wine or call anyone to vent. I changed into pajamas, sat at the edge of my bed, and just stared at the floor. The clock ticked past 1:30 a.m. Somewhere deep in me, something cracked. Quietly, without ceremony. I couldn't keep letting her do this. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't the worst she could do. It was only the beginning. The next morning came slowly, like a bruise forming under the skin. Quiet at first, then unmistakable. I poured my coffee as usual, staring out the kitchen window at a neighbor walking their dog. It was a Sunday, I think. The kind of day you're supposed to use for rest, or brunch, or walking through a farmer's market with someone who holds your hand. Instead, I sat in silence, my phone screen lit up with unread texts from Cala. Her tone was cheerful, as if nothing had happened, as if humiliating me in front of strangers was a passing cloud we could all forget. Hey you, want to come over later? I found that movie we used to love as kids. Not an apology, not a single word of remorse. Just more of the same, like always. 3 days later, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off a box of summer clothes they'd asked me to pull from storage. I hadn't planned to stay long. The air always felt heavier there. As I set the box down by the door, I heard voices drifting from the kitchen. Mom, soft and exasperated. Dad, low and calm. A familiar rhythm. "It's not like the last time we paid her credit card bill," my father said. "Irene never found out, and it helped Calla get through that rough patch." I froze. The box slipped slightly from my grip, hitting the floor with a quiet thud. They didn't hear it. Never found out? That rough patch had been the semester Calla went to Paris on a study break. I'd thought she'd saved for it. I'd thought she had a scholarship. I'd even mailed her a care package with my tips tucked inside a book, stupidly proud of her. But now, that had been funded by my parents, behind my back. And worse, they never told me. I left without saying anything. I didn't knock, didn't wait for them to notice. I walked out with the sound of their voices still swirling in my head, like echoes in a house that was never really mine. The next afternoon, I met Camille for lunch at a small sandwich place near her office. We hadn't seen each other in a few weeks, which was rare for us. Normally, she was my person. The one who didn't flinch when I said I was too tired to talk. The one who dropped off soup when I got sick. But something felt off. She was polite, even kind. But her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She didn't ask much about work or my family, just talked about her new upstairs neighbor who practiced the trumpet too loudly at 10 p.m. Halfway through her salad, she put her fork down and said, "Irene, can I ask you something?" I nodded. "Did you know Calla borrowed money from me?" I blinked. "What?" She said it was just a short-term thing, emergency rent. "I figured you were helping, so she must be good for it. I sent her $400. That was 2 months ago." My mouth went dry. I hadn't known. Of course I hadn't. "She ghosted me after that," Camille continued. "Didn't respond to messages. I didn't want to bring it up, but I think she used me, and I think she used your name to do it." I wanted to say something, anything, but all that came out was, "I'm sorry." She smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was resigned. "I know it's not your fault," she said gently, "but I think I need a little space." That sentence hit harder than I expected. I nodded, even as the pit in my stomach grew. She paid for her half of the meal and stood up. "I'll text you later this month." "Maybe." I watched her leave through the front window, her purse slung casually over her shoulder, the way people walk when they're no longer carrying part of your world. That night, I sat in bed scrolling through social media. Calla had posted a story of her laughing at a rooftop bar, champagne in hand, captioned, "Brunch queens do it better." She didn't look guilty, didn't even look aware. I wondered how someone could cause so much harm and still sleep like a baby. How could she smile like that when everything she touched left someone else hurting? I closed the app. My hands were shaking. And then, without even thinking, I deleted it. All of it. Instagram, Facebook, even the messaging threads with her name. Silence flooded in. I walked to my desk, pulled out an old notebook I hadn't touched in years, and opened to a blank page. I started writing, not to vent, not to accuse, but to track, line by line, every payment, every favor, every lie, not for revenge, for clarity, for me. I didn't need apologies anymore. I needed boundaries, and this time, I was going to draw them. It started with a phone call at 10:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was folding laundry, a podcast humming in the background, when the screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something, instinct maybe, made me swipe. "Hello?" A man's voice answered. Professional, detached. "Hi, this is Mr. Chen. I'm Calla's landlord. I just wanted to follow up on the rent. Your payment didn't go through for this month. Should I send the invoice again to your email?" I blinked. "My what?" He hesitated. "Calla said you usually handle it. She gave me your number in case there were any issues. My fingers tightened around the phone. I never agreed to pay her rent, I said slowly. Please remove my number from your records. There was a pause. Oh, I see. I'll speak to Kala. I hung up without saying goodbye. My breath was shallow, my heart, not racing, boiling. It wasn't just about the money, it was the gall, the entitlement, the way she kept handing out pieces of my life like they were hers to give. I sat down on the edge of my bed, phone still in my hand, and stared at the floor like it had answers. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then I typed out the message. If you ever give my name or number to someone regarding your finances again, I'll involve the police. This isn't a joke. I'm done. I hit send. No emojis. No love you anyway. No explanation. 2 minutes later, she replied, Chill. It's just rent. You always overreact. I tossed the phone onto the couch like it had burned me. Maybe I did overreact for years. And maybe now I was finally reacting just enough. That Friday, Aunt Vivian invited me over for dinner. Her voice was warm, the kind that made you exhale without realizing you'd been holding your breath. Just us, she said. No expectations. Come hungry. I brought a small dessert I didn't bake, but pretended I had. It didn't matter. She smiled like I'd brought her gold. We ate chicken piccata with roasted potatoes and limoni greens. She poured me a glass of wine and sat across the table, eyes kind but searching. I've been meaning to say something, she began. I know your parents lean on you, a lot. I swallowed hard, nodding. She continued, It's not fair. They raised 2 daughters, but only one was ever expected to hold the roof up. My throat tightened. I looked down, blinking fast. She reached across the table, touched my hand. You don't have to keep doing it. You're allowed to say no. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. No one had ever said it so plainly. Not with love. Not with permission. Then the phone rang. It was my mother. Vivian sighed, already knowing. I picked up, only because I didn't want to lie later. Are you talking about us? Mom said, her voice cool. Vivian's always been good at stirring the pot. Mom, we're just having dinner. She cut me off. Don't forget who helped you pay your first month's rent, Irene. Don't let people fill your head with... Vivian took the phone from me, calmly, gracefully, and said, Maybe if you raised both daughters equally, Irene wouldn't have to keep cleaning up your mess. She ended the call without another word. My jaw went slack. You didn't have to. I did, she said, pouring another glass, because no one else ever has. After dinner, I helped wash dishes. The silence between us was soft, not awkward. She handed me a towel and said, You're stronger than you think, but strong doesn't mean silent. I went home just before 10. The streets were quiet, headlights smearing against damp asphalt. When I reached my apartment, I didn't turn on the TV or check my phone. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the same notebook from the other night. And this time, instead of listing debts, I made a new list. Boundaries. I won't answer money requests. I won't defend someone who won't defend me. I won't explain my choices to people who only listen to judge. I won't play the villain in someone else's fantasy. I closed the notebook, leaned back, and whispered out loud, I've said yes my whole life. Maybe it's time they hear a no. And if they didn't like what came next, that was their problem, not mine. I went to bed that night with a strange stillness in my chest. No shaking hands, no lump in my throat. Just silence, the kind that fills a room after a door's been closed for good. But that peace lasted less than 36 hours. I woke up Thursday morning to a message that twisted my stomach before I even unlocked the screen. I'm sorry if I've been awful. I don't want to be here anymore. It was from Kala. No punctuation, no follow-up, just that. I shot upright, heart slamming against my ribs. The room suddenly felt cold, despite the spring sun pouring through the window. I dialed her number. Straight to voicemail, I called again. Then again. Each ring felt heavier than the last. No answer. I threw on a sweatshirt and shoes without socks, grabbed my keys, flew down the stairs, phone clutched like a lifeline. I didn't know where I was going. I just couldn't sit still. Couldn't do nothing. I drove. No destination. Just motion. I stopped at red lights without remembering how I got there. When I finally pulled over at a gas station, I called her again. Nothing. 30 minutes later, as I sat frozen in the driver's seat, my phone buzzed. Relax. I was just in a dark place. Thanks for caring, though. I stared at the screen. She knew. She knew exactly what to say to send me spiraling. And worse, she knew I'd come running. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm human. And she'd always treated my empathy like a lever she could pull anytime she needed something. I didn't text back. Instead, I drove home in silence. The only sound was the occasional creak of my tires over pavement. The weather had shifted, sunlight dulled by clouds. That evening, I folded laundry while my phone vibrated again. This time, it was my mother. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Irene, I don't understand how you could abandon your sister when she's clearly suffering. You used to be kind. What happened to you? An hour later, another call. This one from Dad. His voice was heavier, slower. You're not being yourself, sweetheart. That's not how we raised you. Family comes first, always. I put the phone face down on the table and sat beside it like it might explode. What do you say to people who only love the version of you that breaks herself to feed them? I tried writing it out, what I was feeling. But the words felt too polite, too filtered. So I opened my voice memo app and hit record. They don't love me. They love what I do for them, I said softly, almost afraid to hear it out loud. And now that I've stopped, they don't know what to do with me. I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I turned off notifications. For 48 hours, I ignored every call, every ding, every desperate emoji. And, like clockwork, the tone shifted. Kalla's next message was colder. So I guess you've decided you're better than all of us now. Good to know. Then another. I shouldn't have expected anything from someone who hides behind boundaries to justify being selfish. There it was. The final trick in the guilt playbook, turning blame into a weapon. But this time, it didn't land. On Sunday morning, I sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where I'd once listed boundaries. And I added one more. I won't be manipulated by fear, guilt, or shame. I opened a new message thread. Group text. Just family. I typed slowly, carefully, without rage, without apology. Effective immediately, I am no longer financially responsible for Kalla. I will not respond to future requests or third-party pressure. I need space. I need peace. I hope you'll respect that. I read it twice, then hit send. The message went out at 9:04 a.m. I set the phone down, walked to the window, and pulled open the blinds. The sky was clearing, sunlight spilling through clouds like breath after holding it too long. My hands still trembled, but my breath? Steady. What I didn't know then was how far they'd go to break that peace. 3 mornings passed with no calls, no texts, no knocks. I started to think maybe the silence would hold. Maybe this time they'd heard me. Then, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, while I was walking home from a shift at the cafe, Jessa waved at me from across the street. She looked unusually hesitant, almost sheepish. Hey, she called out as we neared the corner. Weird question, but wasn't that vintage watch yours, the silver one? I swear I saw it on Resell Loop yesterday. My steps slowed. What do you mean? She pulled out her phone, scrolled, then turned the screen toward me. There it was. The vintage silver timepiece I'd spent 4 months saving for. The one I gave Kalla on her birthday. The one she cried over, swore she'd keep forever. The tiny inscription still visible in the photo. For every second you dreamed out loud. Love, Irene. The ad was simple. No sentiment, no story. Used but elegant. $225 OBO. My stomach dropped. The world didn't tilt. It tightened. I didn't say anything to Jessa, just thanked her and walked away. I wasn't even mad, not in the hot, yelling way. It was colder than that. She hadn't just taken money. She sold the only thing I gave her from the deepest part of me. She didn't sell the watch. She sold my love. That night, it rained in Sacramento. The soft kind that only hits your windows, not your roof. I made a simple dinner, nothing fancy. Ate alone. Was halfway through washing the dishes when I heard it. Banging. 3 sharp knocks on the front door. Then another 2, faster. I froze. Dish still in hand. I walked quietly toward the peephole. It was Calla. She stood in a white coat, makeup smeared just enough to suggest chaos, but not enough to hide the designer dress beneath it. "Irene!" she shouted. "Open the door!" I didn't move. "I know you're home. I saw your light. Come on!" I slipped the chain lock across and opened the door just a few inches. "What do you want?" I asked. Her eyes flared. "I need a place to crash, just for a couple nights. I got kicked out." My voice stayed low. "You still have that coat and a Louis Vuitton bag. God, is this about appearances now? You think I'm not struggling just because I don't look like it?" I didn't answer. She pressed harder. "You need to let me in. You're my sister. I have nowhere else." I shook my head. "You made this bed, Calla. Don't act shocked, it's cold." Her voice sharpened. "You're seriously going to turn me away? You're so heartless. What kind of sister does that?" I leaned forward just enough for her to hear me clearly. The kind who finally learned how to survive. Then I closed the door. Her voice rose on the other side, something about abandonment, betrayal. But it was muffled now, like yelling from inside a dream. I sat down on the couch. My hands trembled. But they didn't move toward the door. I didn't chase, didn't explain. Later that night, the texts started. "You'll regret this. You're acting like you're better than everyone. Don't forget who helped you when you were nothing." That one hit a nerve. But not for the reason she thought. Because I wasn't nothing I'd never been. I just wasn't hers to use anymore. I typed one line, no punctuation. "I've never been nothing, just invisible to you." Then I blocked the number. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't cry either. In the morning, I changed the locks. The guy from the hardware store did it quickly. No questions. $58, 20 minutes, and a small shake of his head when I handed him the old chain lock. When he left, I stood in the doorway and looked around. The apartment was quiet, my space, my rules. "This place is small," I said aloud, "but it's mine." I walked to the window, opened it, and let the breeze move through the room. "For the first time," I whispered, "it's safe." But I underestimated how far someone will go when they realize they've lost control. The first ping came during my lunch break at the restaurant. I was sitting in the back office, biting into a cold sandwich, when Jessa burst in, phone in hand. "Have you seen this?" she asked, eyes wide. I wiped my hands on a napkin. "Seen what?" She handed me the phone without another word. The screen lit up with an anonymous Instagram post. "Imagine being abandoned by your own sister while struggling with depression. I had to sleep in my car while she blocked my number. I still love her, but she made me feel like nothing." Below the text was a blurred photo of what looked like the front steps of my apartment building. The caption ended with a heart emoji. I scrolled. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. "You're so brave." "She'll regret it one day. Blood doesn't mean anything to some people. Praying for you, whoever you are." But I knew who it was. No name, no handle to trace. But I knew. Calla. Jessa hovered. I didn't want to assume, but it kind of sounded personal. I nodded, feeling a cold flush spread through my chest. "It is." Back out on the floor, the shift moved like molasses. One customer I used to serve every Thursday wouldn't meet my eyes. Another, a woman who always asked for me, requested someone else. Whispers trailed behind me, like steam rising off a hot plate. And when I finally checked my phone again at closing, The DMS had started rolling in. You could have saved her life. You're a monster. Some people don't deserve family. I didn't reply. To anyone. I went home that night with my jaw clenched so tight, my teeth ached. I sat at my kitchen table, stared at the dim light flickering through the blinds, and tried to steady my hands. What did I expect? That Calla would give up quietly? That setting boundaries would be enough? She didn't want distance. She wanted war. But this time, I wasn't going to crawl into silence. I opened my notes app and wrote, "There's a difference between helping and being used. I chose to live. And no one gets to shame me for that." I read it 3 times. No edits, no filter. Then I posted it, on my own page, with my own name, and let the world read it how they wanted. The first comments trickled in. A few vague subtweets from cousins I hadn't heard from in months. But then something shifted. Aunt Vivian replied, "You did the right thing. Don't let their noise drown your truth." Another message came from Camille. I saw the post. "I'm proud of you, and I'm still here." My shoulders loosened, just a little. That night, the wind picked up again outside. Rain tapping faintly at the window, like it was trying to be gentle with me for once. I was mid-dishwashing when my phone lit up again. Calla. "So now you want a public pity war?" I stared at the screen, took a breath, typed back. "You fired the first shot. I just stopped running." I didn't wait for a reply. I powered off my phone, wiped my hands dry, and leaned against the counter. No more hiding, no more guilt blankets wrapped in apology. Because if this was war, I was finally ready to win on my terms. Winning, it turned out, didn't come with applause. It came with silence. After my post, the social storm quieted, but not in a way that felt victorious. Just still. Like everyone had taken a collective breath and chosen not to exhale around me. A few friends didn't reply to my texts anymore. Camille canceled our usual brunch, no explanation. Even my manager, who used to greet me every shift with a smile and a joke, cut my hours without a word. "It's just scheduling," she said. But I saw the way she looked at me now, like I carried something contagious. It was Calla's real gift, not the drama, not the insults, the aftermath, the erosion. She'd always been good at leaving scars where no one could see them. I spent most of that week inside. Curtains drawn halfway, meals kept simple, phone notifications off. But the quiet? It wasn't crushing this time, it was preparation. Then came Aunt Vivian's call on Saturday morning. "We're doing a small cookout, family only," she said, her voice light. "You don't have to come, but you deserve to show your face." I hesitated. "People will stare," I said. She didn't argue. "Then stare back. You don't hide from shame you didn't earn." Sunday afternoon came faster than expected. I put on a soft sweater, jeans that fit just right, and pulled my hair into a low knot. Nothing fancy, just clean and confident. The house was already buzzing when I arrived. Lawn chairs dotted the grass, smoke curled from the grill. Laughter floated over from the porch, but it quieted as I stepped into view. I spotted her immediately. Calla, perched on the patio edge like a queen on a throne nobody offered. Legs crossed, drink in hand. Her eyes found me. Cold, unblinking. My mother stood beside her, jaw tight. My father? Sipping lemonade, avoiding eye contact like it might bite him. I nodded at Aunt Vivian, who smiled softly. Brave, I thought. Her, not me. Then it happened. Calla's voice rang out, just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Even now, she's the victim. She always wanted people to pity her. The words hung in the air like wet laundry, heavy and humiliating. I didn't flinch. I walked toward her, each step measured, the grass crunching under my shoes like it knew something sacred was ending. When I reached her, I didn't raise my voice, didn't point a finger. I just looked at her and said, "No." I just wanted to stop bleeding for someone who wouldn't even say thank you. The yard stilled. A cousin near the grill clapped once, twice, then stopped. No one else moved. I turned to Miriam, who stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Then to Ronald, who shifted his weight and looked past me. I won't keep giving you a daughter to sacrifice, I said quietly. Not anymore. And I walked away, back to my car, back to my life. No one called after me. No one followed. The sun was lower when I got home, streaking amber across the floorboards. I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of water, and sat on the couch. My phone sat silent. No buzzing, no guilt trip voicemails, no please come back from anyone, just me. And in that space, for the first time in years, I felt something like peace. It didn't come wrapped in a happy ending, but it felt earned. Not all battles end with forgiveness. Some end with freedom. The first few days afterward felt like walking barefoot on new hardwood, quiet, unfamiliar, but solid. I didn't hear from my parents. Not once. No checking in, no guilt-laced prayers or scripture quotes. The air around me had thinned out, and strangely, I could breathe better in it. One night, about a month after the cookout, I sat at my little two-person table, eating reheated soup and a slice of buttered toast. The apartment hummed with the dull purr of the fridge. Outside, someone was walking their dog, its collar tags jingling faintly through the window. No one had texted me all day. I smiled. At first, the silence had felt like punishment. Now it sounded like music. The next morning, I rode the city bus to the community college I'd once only daydreamed about. It was gray outside, the kind of weather that made Sacramento look soft around the edges. I stepped into the student services office and waited behind a young man with earbuds in and a mother wrangling a toddler. When it was my turn, the woman at the desk smiled politely. Program? Culinary arts, I said. Night or weekend courses? Night, I replied, then added, I work full-time. She nodded, typing something. Do you have an emergency contact? I hesitated. There was a time I would have said Calla without thinking, or my parents, even after everything. But now? No one, I said gently. Just me. She didn't flinch, just wrote it down. I paid the deposit with the same card Calla used to drain for shopping trips. It felt poetic. When I left the building, my receipt tucked into my coat pocket, I looked up at the sky. It wasn't sunny, it wasn't raining, just somewhere in between. That night, as I settled into bed with a book, my phone buzzed. One notification, a long message. From Calla. It started with, I was awful, I know that now. She wrote about missing me, about going through a lot, about maybe meeting someday, just to talk. I read it once, then again, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or pity, just space between us. I didn't reply. I hovered over the delete button, then pressed it. Healing, I'd come to learn, isn't always a homecoming. Sometimes it's a quiet goodbye. The next morning, I opened my kitchen window. A cool breeze drifted in, bringing with it a faint smell of wet pavement and cut grass. I pulled out my old, dog-eared cookbook, the one I'd marked with sticky notes years ago, and tucked away, thinking it was a someday thing. I flipped to a page with a simple chicken and rosemary dish. Comfort food. My kind. I gathered the ingredients, washed my hands, lit the burner. As the oil hissed softly in the pan, I whispered, This time, I cook for me. And I meant it. I didn't win, I just stopped losing. And for once, that was enough. You know, for a long time, I thought love meant saying yes. That loyalty was proven by how much of yourself you were willing to lose for someone else. But I've learned something I wish I'd known sooner. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. Stop enabling. Stop explaining. Stop shrinking to fit inside someone else's expectations. I didn't walk away because I hated them. I walked away because I finally chose me. If you're watching this and you've been carrying more than your share for too long, maybe it's time to ask yourself, at what cost? Who's taking your energy while calling it love? And what would it look like to protect your peace, even if it means being misunderstood? You don't have to wait for rock bottom to reclaim your life. Sometimes healing doesn't come from reconciliation, it comes from release. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family or walk away entirely? What part of this story hit home for you the most? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story touched your heart, or just let me know where you're watching from. And hey, if this didn't speak to you, that's okay too. Tell me why. I'd love to hear your story too. And if you want more real stories like this, raw, honest, and human, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter. Thanks for being here. Until next time. Hello, my name's Odessa. During a family trip to Palm Springs, they told me to sit at my own table. I thought it was just tradition. But a few days later, every investor in our company pulled out, without warning. The dinners I wasn't invited to, the meetings I wasn't told about, the polite smiles that hid something much colder. Was this really about family? Or was it always a setup to erase me, quietly? I kept asking myself, how did I go from co-founder to ghost? And why? Did no one stop it? I had told myself this trip would be different. Palm Springs in the summer wasn't everyone's idea of a relaxing getaway, but the resort Thayer's parents picked was immaculate. Whitewashed stone, saltwater pools, soft jazz humming through hidden speakers. Every towel folded with surgical precision. It was a kind of curated perfection that dared you to be out of place. And maybe this time, I wouldn't be. Thayer had said it'd be a chance to reconnect, that his parents were trying with me. I wanted to believe him. I packed light. I even brought the dress Callista once complimented in passing, though her tone made it sound more like critique. When we arrived that afternoon, the desert air shimmered with heat. The valet took our bags, the front desk manager greeted us like old friends, and I followed the family into the resort's glassy coolness, hoping that maybe, just maybe, this time I wouldn't feel like a guest in my own marriage. By the time we reached the rooms, it was past 5 p.m. We'd barely unpacked when Callista tapped on the door and said dinner reservations were for 6:30. I changed, took a breath, and told myself, smile. You're not the enemy here. The patio restaurant glowed in sunset gold. Tables lined the edge of a manicured garden, with string lights swaying gently above. I walked alongside Thayer, scanning the large round table already half filled with Everett, Juno, and the rest of the family. I stepped forward to take the empty seat beside Thayer when Callista raised her hand. Oh, there must be a mix-up, she said lightly, gesturing to the waiter. She prefers quiet. Can we set her just over there? I blinked. She? As if I weren't standing right there. The waiter looked confused, but nodded, guiding me to a smaller table a few feet away, beautifully set for one. I looked at Thayer. He gave a tight shrug. It's just how we do things. I waited for him to realize how it sounded. He didn't. No one said a word to me during dinner. They laughed, passed plates, refilled glasses. At one point, Everett made a joke about Juno's ex-boyfriend, and even Callista laughed. I pushed my fork around my plate, slicing salmon I didn't want, pretending not to care. After dessert, I lingered longer than necessary, hoping someone might notice. No one did. We returned to our rooms just after 8:30. The air had cooled, but my skin still felt hot. I didn't speak, neither did Thayer. He kissed me on the cheek and went straight into the bathroom. I stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at the perfectly lit courtyard. I told myself to breathe. It's just one dinner, I thought. Maybe tomorrow will be different. Morning came fast. I woke before the sun fully rose, dressed quickly, and checked the itinerary I'd been given. Except, of course, there was none. I assumed we'd all go down together, like any normal family on vacation. At 7:40, I texted Thayer. Are we heading to breakfast? No reply. I waited another 10 minutes, then decided to go look. Maybe they were still getting ready. Maybe I was being paranoid. The restaurant was already buzzing when I got there. I scanned the space. Empty tables. Then, tucked near the back patio, I saw them. Callista sipping coffee. Everett with a newspaper. Juno mid-bite, already laughing at something Thayer had said. I approached slowly. Why didn't anyone tell me you were coming down? Callista didn't even glance up. We figured you'd join if you felt like it. Everett said nothing. Juno looked at me, her face flush, guilty. Thayer just stabbed at his eggs. My mouth felt dry. I swallowed hard, nodded. Of course. I turned and walked away before anyone could say another word, though I knew none of them would. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone screen. No reply from Thayer. No updated schedule. No clue what came next. I whispered, not to anyone in particular, maybe not even aloud. It's not a mistake. It's a system. I stayed in the room the rest of the morning. The sun rose higher, pouring soft light across the tile floors, but I didn't move much. I sat by the window, sipping coffee that had gone cold, and tried not to let the silence feel like confirmation. It was nearly noon when I got a text from the front desk. My spa appointment was ready. I had forgotten I even had one. Part of me wanted to cancel. Another part, maybe the part that still craved structure, grabbed my robe, slipped on sandals, and went. The massage was gentle, the oils expensive, the technician polite. It was exactly what people call relaxing, and yet I spent most of the hour trying to keep my jaw from locking shut. By the time I returned to my room, it was just after 4. My skin smelled faintly of lavender. I thought I might take a nap, let the last of the tension fade. But when I pulled out my phone, instinct made me open Instagram, and that's when I saw it. Juno had posted a photo, candlelit terrace, white tablecloths, Thayer at the center, grinning across the table at Claire, our biggest investor, along with 2 more from the board. Everyone looked so warm, so pleased with themselves. Everyone but me, because I wasn't there. I froze, staring at the screen. I checked my texts. Nothing. My email. Empty. I scrolled again, thinking maybe it was from another night, but the timestamp was clear. Tonight. 6:42 p.m. I hadn't even known they were meeting, let alone pitching. My pulse ticked up, slow but sharp. I set the phone down, stood up, then sat back down, unsure what to even do with my hands. Thayer came in around 9. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, and he smelled faintly of wine and citrus. He didn't say much at first, just loosened his watch strap and toed off his shoes like it was any other evening. I didn't look at him, just said, "Dinner go well?" He hesitated, then gave that vague little shrug he always used when lying wasn't quite necessary, but honesty felt inconvenient. "It was kind of last minute. You seemed like you needed rest." I turned toward him slowly. "You pitched to Claire." He scratched his neck. "It wasn't a formal thing, just ideas tossed around." "You used my eco model," I said, voice flat. "Claire liked it," he said, like that made it okay. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. He went into the bathroom after that. I sat there in the quiet again, my reflection dim in the window. About an hour later, my phone buzzed. A message from Claire. Claire. "Hey, just to confirm, did we already implement that update to the resource model?" I stared at it for a few seconds. The eco model was mine. The update schedule was mine. I had led the data science on it for months. I typed back, "Not yet." I didn't know we were discussing it tonight. There was a pause. Then came her reply. "Ah, I see. Just that." 3 words. But something shifted. Claire wasn't stupid. She had just seen a problem. And I had just seen it too, clearly, unmistakably, for the first time. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was architecture. Later that night, I ran into the family in the lobby. I wasn't trying to, just heading down to get a bottle of water. But there they were, lounging in low chairs, like royalty on break. Callista glanced up and smiled. all syrup and lipstick. We had such a productive dinner. Shame you weren't feeling up to it, Everett added, without lifting his eyes from the sports section. Claire really loved Thayer's direction. Very visionary. I smiled back. Tight. My mouth moved, but my heart had already stepped away from all of it. I'm glad it went well, I said. Then I walked to the gift shop, bought a water I didn't need, and returned to the room. The laughter behind me felt thinner than usual. Back upstairs, I kicked off my shoes, set the water down untouched, and powered up my laptop. I didn't know what I was looking for yet, only that something itched, some wrongness beneath the surface that I'd ignored for too long. And if I had learned anything tonight, it was this. Nothing about this was random. I didn't sleep that night. The screen of my laptop glowed in the dark, painting soft blue on my skin as I clicked through folders, then old albums, then older ones. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for until I saw it. It was buried in a shared family drive. One Thayer's aunt had created years ago to keep memories in one place. The photo itself looked unremarkable at first. A group dinner, long wooden table, a soft-lit courtyard, people chatting, wine glasses raised. Until I looked again. Off to the side, near a potted plant, sat a woman alone. No plate in front of her, no one turned toward her. She wasn't laughing, she was just there. I zoomed in slowly. Her face came into view. Marcelle, Thayer's ex-wife. I'd only seen a few pictures of her before, one from their wedding, which had been quietly buried in a storage box, another from an old social media post, long deleted. But this one was raw. I paused, then saved the image. As I clicked to enlarge it further, I noticed something strange. A note written on the back, in Callista's elegant cursive. Too fragile for our family. I didn't move. For a second, it was like my entire chest had hollowed out. My fingers trembled slightly on the trackpad. This wasn't just habit. This was how they operated. I texted Juno. Me. Did Marcelle ever talk about them? About how she was treated? There was no reply at first. I waited. A full 30 minutes passed before my phone buzzed again. Juno. Can you be alone for a bit? Me. I'm in my room. Another 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock on my door. I opened it to find no one, but there was an envelope lying just outside. My name, written neatly on the front. Inside, a folded letter. The paper slightly yellowed, ink smudged at the edges. It was from Marcelle, never sent, never spoken about, but kept and passed on. Her handwriting was steady but tired. They never love anyone they can't control. That was the first line. As I read, the shape of everything I had experienced began to mirror hers. She wrote about sitting apart from the family, not being told about dinner plans, being called emotional when she voiced concern, told she was imagining things, the silent smiles, the controlled narrative, and then this. I should have run sooner. I hope whoever comes next doesn't stay as long as I did. By the time I finished reading, the sun was just beginning to trace light through the sheer curtains. I placed the letter on the desk, breathing in the silence. For the first time in days, my mind felt still. Not calm, but clear. They had done it before. They were doing it again. But the difference was, I wasn't her, and I wasn't finished. I reached for my laptop again, not to scroll mindlessly, but to work. I started reviewing every corporate document connected to the startup. Bank authorizations, contracts, booking receipts for this trip. Then our cap table. Who held what? How decisions had been logged. Who had spoken for me, and who hadn't. I checked the billing contact on our hotel booking. My name. The rental car? Mine. Spa? Charged to my account. The dinner Thayer used to impress Claire? Also mine. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was documenting. I copied Marcel's letter into a password-protected folder and labeled it clearly, just in case. Then I opened the latest pitch deck Thayer had sent to Claire. Not to be petty, not to fight, to prepare. The morning after I read Marcel's letter, I skipped breakfast. Instead, I walked through the resort paths, stone tiles hot under my sandals, the air already heavy with heat. I needed space to think. I needed to keep moving, because if I stopped, I might start feeling, and I didn't want that. Not yet. Around noon, Callista caught me by the pool. She wore her usual oversized sunglasses and a crisp linen cover-up, the kind only old money wore without irony. I nodded politely, expecting small talk, or maybe a veiled comment about how tired I looked. Instead, she gestured to the chair beside me and sat, crossing her legs with the kind of precision that said, "I am always in control." "I've been thinking," she started. "For legal clarity, perhaps Thayer should hold the main corporate account. Just on paper, nothing changes." I turned slowly, letting the words sink in. "For the business?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She smiled. "It's what any strong family business does." My hands gripped the arms of my chair. "We're not a family business," I said, my voice even. "We're a partnership, founded together, structured legally, managed jointly." She waved a hand lightly, like brushing away dust. Of course. It's just cleaner, less complicated for investors, especially when it's, well, family." I didn't respond. I just stood up, thanked her for her input, and walked away. Thayer said nothing during the exchange. He'd been sitting behind us, pretending to scroll his phone, but I knew he'd heard every word. And he hadn't spoken. Not once. Later that afternoon, as the sun dipped lower, casting amber over the desert, I returned to my suite. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat on the balcony instead, trying to let the quiet do its job. That's when I heard voices below. Male. Familiar. I leaned forward slightly, careful not to be seen. Thayer and Everett sat at one of the courtyard tables. They each had a drink in hand. From this height, I could hear most of it. "Once your name's on it," Everett said, "we can restructure, make it cleaner, keep things streamlined." "She won't like that," Thayer replied. Everett chuckled. "She doesn't have to." I froze. They weren't discussing a suggestion. They were planning a removal, and not just from the business, but from control, from ownership, from her own creation, from my creation. I backed away from the balcony, hand gripping the sliding door. My stomach turned, not from shock, but from how unsurprised I was. I'd felt it coming. Now it had a voice. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling fan, listening to its soft, rhythmic hum. My mind played reel after reel of everything I'd built, every late night, every pitch meeting, every deal I closed that Thayer took credit for because it made things easier. They weren't just rewriting the business, they were rewriting me out of it. I turned on the bedside lamp and grabbed my laptop again. I needed to act, but not emotionally, not recklessly. I'd seen where that got Marcel. They'd painted her as unstable, fragile, incapable. They wouldn't get that narrative with me. So I drafted a message, encrypted it, sent it to a secure account I rarely used. Subject line, Red Phase Protocol, activated. The morning came with music, not the kind you welcome. It drifted in through the patio doors, soft jazz from hidden speakers near the pool deck, Sunday brunch, family style, white linens, silver pitchers of orange juice, careful laughter arranged like centerpiece flowers. I didn't want to go, but staying in would have looked like avoidance. And right now, I needed to look composed. So I dressed, tied my hair back, and walked toward the terrace with a face that didn't match my mood. By the time I arrived, the table was half full. Thayer sat next to Callista. Everett poured himself another mimosa, already relaxed. Juno caught my eye and gave me a tentative nod, as if she wasn't sure where she was supposed to stand anymore. A server placed a plate in front of me. Eggs, fruit. I hadn't requested anything. I was reaching for the salt when it happened. A sharp yelp, then a splash of water. Everyone turned. Callista's nephew, maybe 5 or 6, had tripped near the edge of the pool. He wasn't hurt badly, but the scrape on his arm drew instant attention. He cried, held his elbow, and reached for Callista, who bent to inspect the bruise. And then came the dagger, smooth and subtle. "I assumed Odessa was watching him," Callista said, still bent over. "She's always so attentive when it's about her company." The table fell quiet. No one laughed. No one dared. I set my fork down. "If you're going to insult me," I said, voice flat, "do it directly." She straightened slowly, brushing non-existent lint from her dress. "Why would I do that?" she said, her tone sugar-sweet. "We're family." I glanced at Thayer. He looked down at his plate, chewing slowly, as if he hadn't heard a thing. Juno reached for her napkin and squeezed it tight, her knuckles pale. I stood up without a word and left the table. Late that afternoon, I found a quiet corner by the gardens to breathe. The heat was heavy, pressing into the back of my neck. I took off my sandals and let my feet feel the warm stone beneath them. That's when Juno found me. She didn't say much, just handed me a bottle of water and sat beside me for a few minutes in silence. "She does it to everyone," Juno said finally. "The smile, the hints, the way she makes it seem like you're the problem." I nodded. "She's not subtle." Juno gave a short laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. That evening, I watched them from across the lounge. Callista whispered something to Juno and linked arms with her, leading her toward the private walkways behind the cabanas. They were gone for maybe 20 minutes. When Juno returned, her face looked changed, tight. She passed me on the way back to her room, didn't say anything, but her eyes caught mine just long enough. I understood. At dinner that night, the atmosphere had reset. Faux pleasantries, and a carefully arranged seafood platter. Callista poured herself a glass of white wine, made a joke about Florida humidity, and Thayer chuckled like it was all normal again. When the plates were cleared, I leaned forward slightly and said, just loud enough for her to hear, "Next time you come for me in public, bring more than a brunch tray." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I replied. "Keep testing me, I promise. I'll start playing your game. Just not by your rules." Her expression didn't change, but the grip on her wineglass tightened for a second. Everett looked between us. Thayer pretended not to notice. After dinner, I walked straight back to the room. No pauses, no distractions. I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the desk, opened my laptop, and reviewed every reservation, booking, and line item connected to this trip. Every room was under my name. Every car. Every dinner. Then I started canceling. I stayed at the desk long after the last dinner plate had been cleared from the table downstairs. The lamp beside me cast a warm, focused circle of light on the wood grain. Outside the window, the resort glowed softly. Well-manicured silence, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash. No second-guessing. No hesitations. I logged in. Room 403, Everett and Callista's, canceled first. A confirmation email hit my inbox before I even clicked the next tab. Room 407, Thayer's suite. Gone in under 15 seconds. Spa appointment under Callista's name for 10 a.m. Scratched from the system. Dinner for 6 at the Grove, reserved 3 months ago by me? Cancelled. Every table that night was now unavailable. I made sure of it. Rental SUV, revoked. No backup booking, no driver service, no concierge. They'd be lucky to find a taxi by noon. I paused, rolled my shoulders, then opened my own hotel profile. I shifted my reservation to a luxury suite at a boutique hotel in Santa Barbara. Same check-in day, 2 hours west. I booked it under my maiden name, just in case. I folded a piece of resort stationery in half, wrote a single line, and placed it neatly on the pillow of the bed I was leaving behind. Find your own ride. By the time I zipped my bag and walked out of the room, it was almost 2 a.m. The hallway lights hummed overhead, and the marble floors chilled my bare ankles. I rolled my suitcase behind me, soft wheels moving like they didn't want to wake the sleeping decorum. At the front desk, the night manager looked up with mild surprise. Checking out early, Ms. Reed? Just changing the scenery, I said. Can you make sure no further charges are applied to my card? He nodded. Of course. Would you like us to notify your family? I met his eyes without blinking. They'll figure it out. He didn't ask anything else, just handed me a copy of the zeroed-out folio and held the door open as I stepped into the cool desert night. The stars were still out as I pulled out of the circular driveway. I didn't play music. I didn't think, just drove. The further I got from Palm Springs, the quieter everything inside me became. At a rest stop past Indio, I parked beneath a dim lamppost and made myself stretch. My back cracked from the tension, but I didn't mind. I pulled my phone from my tote, found the draft I'd saved earlier. 2. Claire subject. Clarification on leadership roles. The body was short, measured, director. I read it once more, my thumb hovering over send. Not yet. I bought a coffee from a tired-looking vending machine, leaned against the hood of the car, and let the steam warm my face. Let them burn a little, I whispered, because by the time they realized what I had done, it would already be too late. By noon, my phone vibrated on the passenger seat. Unknown number, South Carolina area code. I answered, already knowing what it was. Ms. Reed? A calm voice asked. This is Officer Daniels with the Hilton Head Police Department. Your husband has filed a missing persons report. I pulled the phone from my ear slowly, setting it down on the table beside my half-empty coffee. The hum of the cafe near the highway blurred around me. Missing persons report. That's what Thayer had filed. I wasn't surprised, not really. But the official tone in Officer Daniels' voice, the careful way he'd asked if I was safe, it landed like a cold stone in my gut. I took a breath, then asked calmly, Officer, would you like me to clarify my location now? Yes, ma'am, if you're willing. I gave the address of the hotel in Santa Barbara. Then, before he could ask, I added, I left voluntarily. I'm not missing, and I would like to file a no-contact request. Immediately. He paused. I can initiate that for you, he said. Are you certain? I've never been more certain in my life. By the time I checked into the executive boardroom I'd rented, the sun had shifted just enough to cast long shadows across the polished floors. Bottled water lined the center of the table. Legal pads. Silence. It looked like a conference room, but it felt like a war room. I arranged the folders, documents, photos, timestamps, printed emails. My laptop sat open to the master spreadsheet. Every cancellation, every booking, every name that mattered. Then I waited. The door opened precisely 5 minutes past the hour. First came Thayer, his eyes dark under the fluorescent light. Then Callista and Everett, moving like they were walking into a courtroom, not a family meeting. Juno followed last, clutching her phone like it was armor. Thayer was the first to speak. What the hell is this? I didn't look up. A conversation. Since you're all so fond of having them behind my back, I thought we'd try it face to face. Callista crossed her arms. Dragging us across the state wasn't necessary. You'll see in a moment, I replied. I slid the photo of Marcel across the table. Then the letter. Then the printout of their Hilton Head booking, canceled. The spa. The restaurant. All of it. Their names. My credit card. My name behind the curtain. You humiliated us, Callista snapped. This was cruel. No, I said, voice quiet but steel-lined. You erased me. I just made it obvious. Thayer leaned back, his jaw tense. Everett said nothing. Juno stared down at the table. I tapped my laptop, opened an email log. All those investor calls you thought I didn't know about. I traced every change, every email Claire never saw, every pitch deck sent without my signature. I was trying to protect the business, Thayer said. From your wife? Silence. We built this together, I continued. You used me as a silent signature. A prop. Callista stepped in. That's enough. No, I cut her off. That's the problem. No one ever says that to you. I will. There was a break in the conversation. No one moved. My phone buzzed quietly beside me. It was a message. Unknown number. We see who's actually leading. Good for you. I didn't know which investor sent it, but I didn't need to. For the first time in days, I smiled. Not out of spite, not even out of triumph, just clarity. I looked up again, meeting every set of eyes in the room. Let's finish this, I said. They said nothing. I reached for the final document and slid it across the table. Then I leaned forward. Now, I said slowly, either you step back, or I make sure no one ever trusts you with $1 again. I woke earlier than usual. The meeting room had cleared the day before, but the tension hadn't left me until sometime after midnight. I'd showered, crawled into the unfamiliar bed of my Santa Barbara suite, and for the first time in a long while, slept without interruption. Now the morning light was painting soft stripes across the floor of my new office. A clean, sleek space, minimalist, quiet, glass walls that looked out over the Pacific. The kind of office I'd once imagined, back when Thayer and I were just scribbling startup ideas on napkins. On the glass door, my name was etched in gold, Odessa Renly, CEO. I stood by the window, a coffee warming my hands, watching waves roll in. Then the notification came. The subject line was simple. Change of direction, effective immediately. Claire had written it herself. We're formally discontinuing all investment collaboration with Thayer Renly. Moving forward, our funding and equity interest will sit solely under Odessa Renly's leadership. Legal updates will follow within 24 hours. I reread the email. Not because I didn't believe it, because for the first time, I didn't have to. I replied with 3 words. Acknowledged. Thank you. There was no trembling in my fingers, no lingering doubt, just the steady rhythm of breath returning to a body that had been clenched for far too long. I let the moment sit. Across the room, the framed photo of my first patent hung on the wall. Below it, the original mission statement I'd written alone on a hotel notepad years ago. Back when they said I was too idealistic. Back when Callista called it naive ambition. A vibration from my phone broke the stillness. Juno. Juno. Callista's losing her mind, screaming at the kitchen staff like they're shareholders. I smiled. Me. Let her scream. Not my kitchen. Juno. Thayer hasn't come out of his apartment. Me. Took him long enough? There was a pause. Then, Juno. You did it. I looked at her message. My fingers hovered, then typed back. Me. We did it. You told me the truth. That matters. There were so many things I could have said, but in the end, that was all that needed saying. I sat down at the desk, not across from anyone, not beside anyone, at the head. Boots off, feet up. A woman at ease in her own skin, her own seat. I called Evan, our lead engineer. Morning, he answered, his voice scratchy from coffee or lack of sleep. It's go time, I said. We're rebuilding the whole interface, under my name, under my rules. He didn't ask for confirmation. He knew. I've been waiting for this, he said. Me too. As we hung up, I glanced again at the name on the door. Odessa Renly. Not an extra seat, not a placeholder. The chair that had always been mine. Before logging off for the day, I clicked open one final folder. A photo, an old family picture from 3 years ago. Taken during a vacation I barely remembered enjoying. Everyone was smiling, and there, in the corner of the frame, was a chair at the end of the table. Empty. I didn't delete it, I just closed the file. 2 weeks had passed. Not dramatically, not loudly. They passed the way good healing does. Gradually, almost unnoticed, until you realize you're breathing differently. I woke up to the sound of distant seagulls and the familiar hum of traffic below. My apartment wasn't fancy. It didn't need to be. It was mine. Light poured through gauzy curtains. A breeze carried the salt of the ocean through the open windows, rustling the leaves of the little basil plant I hadn't managed to kill yet. The place was small. 2 rooms, warm wood floors, the kind of kitchen where you couldn't stretch your arms too wide. But everything in it had a purpose, and none of it had been picked out by Callista. My inbox was full, contracts to review, new partnership proposals to consider. But I didn't rush. There was no calendar controlled by anyone else, no voice in the next room asking, "Did you send that pitch yet?" No mild suggestion disguised as strategy, no veiled demand wrapped in etiquette. Just quiet, mine. Around mid-morning, Juno knocked, as she'd promised. She carried 2 coffees and a smirk that didn't quite hide the satisfaction on her face. "Morning," she said, handing me the better cup, because she knew the difference. I raised an eyebrow. "You're smiling like you've got something juicy." She didn't even pretend to hesitate. "Callista's been pulled from 2 board seats. Word about the investor meeting got around." I sat down slowly, careful not to let my face twist into anything celebratory. "And Thayer?" I asked. Juno shrugged. "Trying to raise capital, alone. So far, no one's biting." I nodded. "Good," she added, quieter now. "I mean, it's good, right?" I looked out the window, past the rooftops, toward the curve of the coastline. "I hope they figure it out," I said. "I really do." Juno blinked. "You don't hate them?" I let the question hang. Then, I met her eyes. "I'm done carrying them." She didn't respond for a moment, but she didn't have to. That was the thing about Juno. She understood the weight behind words, even the quiet ones. She left not long after. We didn't hug, just a nod, a small smile, a promise to keep moving. Later that afternoon, as I was sorting through my files, a message popped up on my screen. The name stopped me cold for a beat. "Thayer. I see it now. I'm sorry. I never deserved you." I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I stared at the words for what they were. A quiet admission, years too late. Then I clicked delete. Not because I was angry, because there was nothing else left to say. I opened a drawer in the desk and pulled out the family photo from the trip 3 years ago, the one with the empty chair. For a moment, I traced the edges of it with my finger. Then I slid it into the back of the drawer, not to erase it, just to stop staring. Some scars don't vanish, but they fade when you stop picking at them. That evening, as the sky cooled into lavender and blue, I stepped out onto the rooftop of my building. Barefoot, mug in hand, wind brushing through my hair. The city moved quietly below me. The ocean kept breathing, and I stood still, centered in something I had built with no one's permission but my own. "They tried to silence me," I whispered. "Now they hear me in every room they enter." A chime from my phone. New message, new partner pitch, clean slate. I smiled, turned, and walked back inside. Then I closed the door. I used to think that staying quiet meant keeping the peace, that if I smiled enough, bent just right, gave them what they wanted, they'd let me belong. But the truth is, silence doesn't earn you respect. It just makes it easier for people to erase you. This wasn't just about one vacation. It was about years of being told I was too much or not enough, never exactly right. If you're watching this and you've ever felt that way, let me say this. You are not difficult. You are not overreacting. You are just finally done shrinking. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop explaining yourself. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever felt like you were being slowly pushed out of your own story? Or maybe you had a moment where you stood up and everything changed? Tell me your city, tell me your story, or just drop a if this hit home. And hey, if this video moved you, made you feel seen, or simply made you pause, comment a 1 below, or tell me where in the world you're watching from. If you didn't connect with it, I'd still love to know why. Let's talk. If you want more stories like this, raw, real, and rooted in resilience, hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us keep sharing voices that matter.